The Miami Dolphins made one selection on day one of the NFL Draft, and that was at the 13th pick. No trading up, no trading back. They went with defensive lineman Kenneth Grant out of Michigan. And on today's show, I am going to talk about Grant in depth, give my draft grade on how everything played out, and then also look at some targets for Miami on day two, as they are currently slated at pick 48 and 98. But let's continue to harp on Grant, who, according to Tom Downey, was the second overall defensive tackle, but 22nd overall player. I am a massive fan of Grant. If you looked at my Dolphins Today big board heading into the draft, he was number 5. The only 4 players he trailed were Will Johnson, Will Campbell, Armand Membu, and Jahdae Barron. They passed, obviously, on Will Johnson and Barron. Membu and Campbell went ahead of Miami. So when it was on the board for the Dolphins, Grant was my third player available. And I have always been very bullish on Grant's fit for the Dolphins because to me, he reminded me a lot of Christian Wilkins. Is that my player comp for Grant? No, but I see similarities in terms of the athleticism to their size, the ability to stop the run, but also get after the passer, and also be able to get off the line of scrimmage quick and explosiveness. And I think Grant is going to be a perfect fit next to Zach Sealer day one. And I could understand why Miami ultimately wanted to go with him. And I think it was ultimately an excellent pick for the Dolphins. If you go back 1 year, I gave Chop Robinson's pick in the first round a C+ grade. This year's first round selection of Kenneth Grant at 13 is going to be significantly higher than that. But before I tell you what my grade is ultimately going to be for Kenneth Grant in the first round, I want you to grade the Dolphins pick. Get down in the comment section, A, B, C, D, or F. Include pluses, minuses. Let me know your thoughts, knowing that the Dolphins passed on Barron, Will Johnson, Jahad Campbell, Tyler Warren, and some of these other prospects. Let me know your grade for the Dolphins in the first round. When it comes to the selection of Kenneth Grant at 13, I am going with an A-. It is a high grade for me, but defensive line was as big as a need as any. You would argue 1A, 1B was cornerback and D-line. So they address one of their biggest needs. They get a complementary player to Zach Sealer on the interior, a place that the Dolphins needed to improve in drastically. And when you look at how the board played out, I applaud Chris Grier even more, and it's why the grade to me is an A-. I was originally thinking B+, but we saw Walter Nolan, Graham, Grant, and Harmon all go before pick 22. All 4 of them in the top 21. We also saw the Lions at 28 go with Tyleik Williams out of Ohio State. So we saw 5 interior defensive linemen going in round 1. I think the sense that Chris Grier got was that these defensive linemen were going to go off the board earlier than expected, and these top players that you would hope to be there at 48 in terms of Darius Alexander, TJ Sanders, Alfred Collins might be moving up the board. So he felt at the time Grant was the right pick to fill a need on the interior defensive line, and he made the pick, which is why I go with an A- grade. Now, would I have liked the night 1 grade for the Dolphins to be an A because they trade back up into the first round to grab a cornerback? Maybe. We'll get to that in just a second. But when you just think about the Dolphins sitting and taking Grant at 13, I don't know how you can't be excited about this. He is a wide body, a great run stopper, but he was able to get after the quarterback last year. And I will just say it every time I talk about Grant. The play that he made against the Penn State Nittany Lions when the running back broke out to the left side and was 25 yards downfield. And who hawked him down from behind so he couldn't score a touchdown in the open field? Kenneth Grant. Because he's got a high motor, he's exceptionally quick for his size, and he just is everything you want on the defensive line. He really is. And for a team in Miami that needs physical players that want to win, will do anything to win, Grant epitomizes that. Was a key factor for the Wolverine defense this year. Was a major factor in the Wolverine defense that won a national championship in 2023. Like, I don't know how you can't just be thrilled with the type of player, the character you're adding to this defense. I think he is going to be versatile in the defensive line. He can play 1 tech. He can play 3 tech. He can play as that nose tackle run stopper in favor of Benito Jones. He can work alongside Zach Sealer. To me, there is just no way that you can feel type of way about this pick. Sure, could you be upset they didn't go corner or Gray Zabel? Sure, I can understand that. But Kenneth Grant was in my top 5 of my big board. He was my 3rd player on the board for the Dolphins when they were picking at 13, which is why I give this an A-minus pick. And I think he's going to be an elite difference maker for the Miami Dolphins right away as an impact starter. But make sure you do subscribe to the channel because we're going to continue to be here breaking down the entire Dolphins draft live for all 7 rounds. We will have pick analysis of every selection. We interact in the live chat because we'll be live for day 2 and day 3. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you join us for the top Dolphins coverage on YouTube there is. Let's talk about Kenneth Grant some more here before we talk about targets in day 2. Athletics Dane Brugler on defensive tackle, Kenneth Grant. Grant plays big in a big man's game, but he also has the athletic traits and effort to grow into more than just a stout run stopper. He projects as an early down NFL starter with 3 down upside. I couldn't agree more. He is a day 1 starter for Miami. Day 1. And when you lost Calais Campbell in free agency right before the draft about 2 weeks ago to the Arizona Cardinals, defensive line, skyrocketed right to the top of the need for the Miami. And you pair up a guy that can stop the run, get after the quarterback, and is just a high character, high motor dude, there just simply isn't a lot that you can ask for outside of that. Would have I been feeling the same type of way if the Dolphins drafted Jahdae Barron or Will Johnson? Yes. And that's going to be the ultimate kind of litmus test here, for me at least. Because I was all in on Johnson, Barron, or Grant with this pick. Those are my top 3 guys. I would have been okay with Zabel. He was my 4th guy. I would have been okay with Warren. He was my 5th guy. But we're going to compare Will Johnson's career, compare Jahdae Barron's career, and Grant's career. Because those are the 3 players that I wanted the most at the spot. Grant was number 3. The 2 corners were number 1 and number 2. But I am not going to complain one bit about Grant becoming a Dolphin because it's a big position of need, and he's a high-character guy that fits this culture, fits this system, and is going to be an impact player from day 1. We're going to talk about more targets for Miami here coming up in just a second for day 2. But we are sponsored by Mando, the whole body deodorant that I trust to make sure I'm smelling right. And as the weather is turning and warming up, I'm looking forward to golfing with the homies, playing some basketball outside. And I'm looking forward to it even more because I've started using Mando whole body deodorant because unlike some other brands I've tried, it can actually handle anything. Clinically proven to control odor better than a shower with soap alone. 12 hours after a shower, the average man's grundle odor level is a 5 out of 10. With Mando, the average grundle odor level is 0 out of 10. Mando starter pack is perfect for new customers. Comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, plus free shipping. I have one of their products in studio with me today, well, because I don't go anywhere without it. That is the deodorant wipes here in studio, whether I'm on the go running errands and I need to freshen up, whether I'm traveling on a trip with friends or family, whether I'm in the studio for NFL Draft weekend and it's a little hot in the studio and I need to freshen up. Mando whole body deodorant wipes and all their products make sure I am not the most smelly person in the room because we all don't want to be that person. As a special offer for listeners, new customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code CHAT. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack when you use code CHAT at shopmando.com, shopmando.com. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando. So before we wrap up the conversation on Grant and move over to some targets for round 2, I want to look at what happened prior to Miami because I think that does matter when you give a grade of an A-. It went chalky in the top 4. Now, was it a shock that the Jacks traded up to number 2 to get Travis Hunter? Yes, but the same first 4 prospects that we thought were going to go ultimately went. Mason Graham went 5, so the dream of Graham to Miami was dead early. Then Genti off the board at 6, and then McMillan and Membu go 7 and 8. So no Membu possibility. And then after that, these 4 picks were ahead of Miami. I had Tyler Booker off my board, so I wasn't even going to want him because I think he's a terrible fit for Miami. But Kelvin Banks, someone linked to Miami, was taken at 9 for the Saints and ultimately wasn't available for the Fins. I don't think the Dolphins were ever going to take Mykel Williams or Kenneth Grant, or to me, Colson Loveland either. So to me, the board fell relatively nicely for Miami. They had the choice of going tight end and Tyler Warren. They had the choice of going best defensive lineman on their board, which ultimately was Kenneth Grant. The choice of going corner, and they had a choice of going with Gray Zabel to slide it and be that starting left guard. And I'm going to continue to say, is it the pick that I wanted the most? No, because I told you, and I will continue to say, I had the 2 corners on my big board higher, which is why this grade isn't an A+ or an A for me. It's an A- because it fills a position of need, and it was a player that I was interested in and I think fits very well for Miami. And the way the board fell in the rest of the round, where the corners didn't go very high, they slid, and there's a lot of them still available on day 2. That's why I like this pick even more. So with that being said, let's get into some of these targets for Miami in round 2 and on day 2. Cornerback is obviously the biggest need for Miami. After drafting defensive line, no question, corner is the top need for the Fins. Will Johnson's still on the board. I'll say it right now, and I'll say it on the video we put out tomorrow morning. I know he has a knee issue that has clearly been flagged around the NFL, which is the reason why he is still on the board here as we enter the second round. I am taking the chance. I am trading up to get Will Johnson because he's that special of a player. But if the Dolphins stayed put at 48 and took Savone Revel from Eastern Carolina, Trey Amos from Ole Miss, or Benjamin Morrison from Notre Dame, ding, 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 Chris Grier might have won the NFL draft in the first 2 rounds because all 4 of these guys are day 1 starting caliber corners, in my opinion, and you got a day 1 starter in Kenneth Grant. I'd be thrilled with any of these 4 at 48. Now, when it comes to the other corners that could be going on day 2, these are the next top 4 according to us here at Chat Sports. Azariah Thomas from Florida State, Jacob Parrish from Kansas State, Noah Williams from Cal, and Quincy Riley from Louisville. I'll be honest, at 48, I'm taking none of these guys. I'll just be completely honest. At 48, take none of these dudes. Maybe Chris Grier in this front office feels a little different. I'd take any of those other 4 corners at 48. These 4 are not worth it. You told me a couple of these guys were available at 98, like Williams or Quincy Riley. Sure, I'm interested if the Dolphins go in a different direction in the second round. But none of these guys really jump off the page for me as day 1 starters. I'm a little low on Thomas compared to other people, and it's why I'm kind of staying away from him. So if you're looking at corner targets in round 2 for the Fins, I'm looking at those first 4, and then these 4 could be available in the 3rd round. I would also put in Dorian Strong and Darian Porter from Virginia Tech and Iowa State, respectively. I think safety is an intriguing position here because I'm not that stunned that Nick Rohloff made it to the second round because he was not that productive as a player at South Carolina, but he's just so traitsy. He scored a perfect 10 on the RAS. DK Metcalf playing safety. I thought he would go first round, but due to positional value, doesn't shock me he's here in round 2. Do I think he goes in the picks ahead of Miami in the second round? I do. So if the Dolphins want Rohloff, they'd have to trade up, in my opinion. But I do think if the Fins were sitting there at 48 and Rohloff fell to them, I would pass up corner to go with Rohloff just because of he would be my BPA. Unless Will Johnson's on the board. Like, that's the only way that I would not take Rohloff at 48 is if Will Johnson was somehow on the board too. But that's an intriguing name to keep an eye on. Xavier Watts and Kevin Winston Jr. are 2 other second-round safeties. I think Watts could be in play. I would not expect Winston to be in play at 48. Andrew Makuba is likely going to be a second-round pick, maybe early 3rd round. Don't think he'll be in play for the Dolphins at 48. But if you're talking about day 2 targets, him at 98's in play. And then as we get to the second page of the leaderboard at safety, Billy Bowman, Sanker, those 2 I think could be in the Grier plan at 98. Would I wait to see if they were available at 116 in the 4th round? Probably would. Because I like Reid, I like Ransom, I like some of those guys from Clemson as well, Malachi Moore later in the draft. But when I'm talking safety, Rohloff and Watts I'd consider at 48. Everybody else I'm probably holding firm until the 3rd or 4th round. Now when you get to the top guards available, because obviously left guard is still a big position of need. Tate Ratledge is the top guy. I would echo that sentiment here from Chat Sports and Tom Downey. Marcus Bowe is someone is someone the Dolphins have done work on. Met with him at the NFL Combine. The guard from Arizona, Savanea, has been someone that I'm interested in. Wyatt Mullen is another interesting player as well. But when you get further into this guard board, Miles Frazier from LSU, Dylan Fairchild from Georgia, Jalen Rivers from Miami had multiple meetings with the Dolphins. Those 3 players, Frazier, Fairchild, Rivers, all will likely be available at 98. I think the way this board has fell out so far, I would go defensive back, whether it's corner or safety, best player available at one of those positions at 48 for Miami, and then at 98, probably go with offensive line. I think Miles Frazier is a really good fit for the Fins. I had him in my final mock draft. When you look at offensive tackles, I'm really not moved by any of these guys. Arianti Isuri is very good, but he's a pure tackle. He's not going to move inside. Ozzie Trapilo is a pure tackle. He's not going to move inside, and I don't think Logan Brown and Cameron Williams can move inside. Someone interesting to keep an eye on is Charles Grant from William & Mary. He is someone that could move to the guard spot, but he's likely a target for the Fins at pick number 98. Either way, I do not anticipate any of these guys at offensive tackle being the pick for the Fins in the second round, or obviously in the third round as well. I think it's going to go interior offensive line. I think it's going to go defensive back, and that's how it's going to go. So you've seen all of the players. Let me know who you want the Dolphins to draft next. We've seen the pick for Kenneth Grant at 13. We saw the corners available, the safeties, the offensive linemen, the three biggest positions of need for the Fins. I would be stunned if the Dolphins didn't draft one of those three positions in the second round and third round. Who should the Dolphins draft on day 2? Get down in the comment section and let me know, because it is going to be a fascinating day 2, which we will be live for, by the way. But I do want to recap and close out today's show by talking about Kenneth Grant briefly once again. Draft grade for him, A-. Completely different from what last year was. Remember, last year, I'll be open about it, I gave Chop Robinson a C+ grade. I was wrong about that. The reason why I gave it a C+ last year is because they passed on the Duke interior offensive lineman Graham Barton at 21, who was really solid for Tampa Bay this past year, and I wanted him for the Fins. I think it was justified to want Graham Barton. He would have been a big-time player for Miami, but Chop did well. So hopefully I'll be more right about this one, because Kenneth Grant, I think, is going to be a day 1 difference maker. He'll bring the tough mindset, the culture building, and the physicality needed on the defensive line to start winning more in the trenches. And now you have your defensive lineman duo, hopefully, of the next 3 years in Grant and Sealer. Sealer's under contract for 2+ more years. Grant starting that rookie contract where he'll be under contract for maybe 5 years if they pick up that 5th-year option after 4 years of being on that first-year rookie deal. It's going to be fun, man. I think Grant's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to watch him work in training camp, rookie minicamp, the preseason, and ultimately the regular season. But make sure you are subscribed to the channel, because we're going to continue to bring you content every single day around the Dolphins. Best channel on YouTube for Dolphins YouTube content surrounding the draft. We'll have a video out tomorrow morning, day 2 mock draft targets again, and then we'll be live for the second and third round and breaking it all down once again. So hit that sub button and join the channel.